Hi lovelies, welcome back to this channel. If you're new here, my name is Belinda's channel. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload a video, you will be the first person to be notified. And to my returning subscribers, thank you so much for all the love and support. To those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, and also educate you guys are the real MVP. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Alright lovelies, let's dive into this video. So lovelies, I came across this video on my For You page on TikTok, and I thought to share with you guys because I found this super informative, educative and interactive one at that, where this pan-colored lady decided to educate her delusional brothers and sisters who decided to come for her for actually doing the Lord's work. I'm just gonna roll the clip as well as some of all her other stitches I was able to put together. Please leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video.
If you're a white woman who's doing anything in activist circles, you have to expect that Black people and people of color are going to regard you with suspicion. You also have to make peace with it and not cry about it. A lot of women have no problem talking about how we regard all men with suspicion because of the high level of domination, coercion, abuse, and other dangerous behaviors that men as a whole are conditioned into. We make the argument that you never know which person is going to be the person that's a predator, so you have to treat everybody like a predator until proven otherwise. And then a lot of white women get really offended when that same reality is put onto us from Black people and people of color. We don't see ourselves as the oppressor because we identify with the oppressed status of being women, and we have this logical fallacy that because we can identify with one marginalized and oppressed group in society, we can identify with them all. This is where intersectionality becomes really important, which is where a lot of white women especially drop out of the conversation. But the oppression that a person who is Black and also a woman is going to experience is very different than the kind of oppression that a white woman will experience. And while they're both experiencing oppression and they can communicate from the language of oppression to a degree, it's completely disingenuous and dismissive for a white woman to not listen to the unique forms of oppression and systemic marginalization that people of color and Black people experience. When I show up to conversations, I know that I've done a lot of work. But people who meet me and see my white womanness are not going to know any of these things. And even if they did, those things don't meet the bar of making me a safe person for them. I have to demonstrate my safety with the behaviors that I choose and the conversations that I have. And I have to continually demonstrate that safety because it's completely fair for a person who is marginalized below me and by people of my social group to not regard me with safety until they have seen me demonstrate safety continuously over a long enough period of time that they can let their guard down. I have to be available to be called in. I have to be available for conversations. This doesn't mean that I have to accept mistreatment, but it does mean that I can't experience guarded behavior as mistreatment because guarded behavior is not the same as treating me badly. This means that I can't inject the things that I know that I have done to deconstruct into conversations with people who aren't asking those questions. Because if I show up trying to prove myself in that way, I'm centering myself and I'm making the conversation about how good of an ally I am. And it doesn't matter how much work I do on myself, there are still going to be people in the Black community and communities of color that are not going to trust me no matter what. Their not being able to trust me is a reflection of how poorly they've been treated by people who look like me. I have to do that work regardless of who pays attention or who trusts me. Because if I make my deconstruction conditional upon being accepted into the communities I'm deconstructing around, I'm still centering myself. So if you're a white woman working on deconstruction from white supremacy and colonization, it is really important for you to also internalize these beliefs. The bare minimum is deconstructing to a place where we are sitting at equal ground as much as possible. We don't get cookies for that. If you're a white woman who's doing anything, that's where a lot of people screw up on an anti-racist journey or an anti-sexist journey or an anti-classist journey. Basically any deconstruction journey, a lot of people get stuck at the part where the people that you were trying to be safer for call you in and say, what you're doing, what you just said is not okay. And folks will get really up in their feelings about it, really up in their ego about it. And they'll push back like, no, you don't understand. I've done all of this work. I've done all of this deconstructing. That's not racist because I'm not racist. Or they'll want credit for the work that they've already done and experience being called in as someone somehow discrediting them instead of stepping out of that ego and being like, it doesn't matter how much work I've done, I'm going to be doing this work for the rest of my life because I'm conditioned into this system. And every time somebody in a demographic that I'm deconstructing around calls me in, that is a gift. That is an opportunity to learn more, to grow safer, to become somebody that is a better ally or a better accomplice. I saw a creator use that word recently. I really like that better than ally. Being called in is always a gift. It's always an opportunity to show that we're really in it because we're trying to learn and not because we're looking for performative praise, because we're looking for a pat on the head and a pass. One of the most important aspects of deconstruction is opening your ears and closing your mouth. Letting the people whom your existence is oppressive towards tell you when you are doing something that feels like oppression. And people who aren't able to step outside of ego and allow themselves to be immersed in that experience of learning to the point where they are sometimes corrected, they may reduce the amount of harm that they cause. But any time that they push back against being called in, they are harming even more. They are showing, I'm not a safe person. You can't trust me. Because trust is earned not just through doing and saying the right things when it's easy, but continuing to do and say the right things when you're being called out about doing something wrong. That's where a lot of people screw up on an. If you are white, you naturally oppress people who are not white just by existing. That's not your fault. You didn't ask to do that. You may not even agree with the systems that you belong to, which oppress people who are not white. But the reality is that because you were born into whiteness, your existence is oppressive to people who were not born into whiteness. Racism isn't just a personal ideal and attitude. Racism is also a systemic thing that has been conditioned into our culture for centuries. It isn't possible for somebody who is not white to be racist towards white people in America. Because in America, the racism exists from a white at the top to not white people at the bottom structure. A person who is guarded or suspicious towards white people because they are not white is not practicing racism. They are practicing discernment and survival. They have learned by growing up in a racist society that the only way to protect themselves and stay alive is to be as discerning and careful as possible around people who have the power to harm them just by being white. If you are a white person who calls the cops on a suspicious situation and the cops show up, you're still more likely to be believed as the white person, and the person who is not white is a lot more likely to be on the receiving end of police brutality. Non-white people are going to be paid less. They are going to be considered less fully for jobs that they are completely qualified for. They are going to receive substandard medical care. They are going to be treated with much higher rates of prejudice and bias through social service systems. They are going to exist in communities and neighborhoods that have less taxpayer funding going to their local schools, which means that education for their children are going to be subpar based on income. They are more likely to live in poverty, not because they are working less hard, but because of the systemic barriers that they face and the fact that generational poverty and trauma is something that one person can't singularly overcome, which is where reparations come in. White people, by and large, are a predator to people who are not white. If you were to walk out into the woods and you were to treat every bear as though it were a predator, are you being bearist? Or are you practicing an appropriate amount of caution towards something that has the likelihood to harm or even potentially kill you? Being white does give you power, even if individually you don't experience power as something that you have. You can have power imbued upon you just by having certain demographics and characteristics. That power is something that you can exert in situations without realizing it. I live in a non-white neighborhood. There are only 3 houses on my block where white people are. Everyone else is black or Mexican. In my neighborhood, even though I am the minority, I have the most power. Because my whiteness means if I call the cops out to this neighborhood, I'm the person that's believed. Doesn't matter what the truth is. People of color and black people and indigenous people have to hold their breath around me. They have to take extra time to think through everything they do and say, things that I wouldn't take extra time to think about because I would just be living my life. But because I'm a white person and white people are historically oppressive and dangerous to non-white people have to pause around me. They have to analyze me. They have to evaluate my body language and the way that I speak and how I conduct myself. They have to figure out from a distance, am I a safe person for them to be themselves around? Or is them being themselves going to cause me to have some kind of prejudiced reaction that's going to create a situation? Because creating a situation could put them in the line of danger. Being white is oppressive. It's nothing to be ashamed of per se. The only shame is in not accepting the fact that our whiteness is oppressive to people who are not white. If you're not willing to accept that your power and privileges are innate, then you are going to be completely blind to the ways that you have power and privilege. And that means that you are going to exert and practice power and privilege without realizing it, in spaces where you could be putting other people at risk. And because you don't think you have power and privilege, you don't accept that you could be putting other people at risk just by existing. But you do. Holy racism. Discussing the way that Black people specifically have an overrepresentation in the statistics of police brutality and deaths is not minimizing that it also happens to people who are not Black. It is saying that there seems to be an elevated risk of potential harm or death by cop if you're Black. It doesn't mean that there's no risk if you're not Black. It means that being Black seems to be the most lethal risk factor for those particular experiences. You're insinuating that I'm not aware that white people also experience police brutality. My younger brother was killed by police a little less than 2 years ago, okay? October of 2021. He was killed by police while he was living in a homeless shelter and having an autistic meltdown. My younger brother was white, male, poor, disabled, autistic, and he was shot dead. I'm well aware that people who aren't Black also experience police violence and brutality. I'm not minimizing it. It's just that it's not the disproportionate amount of police brutality and murder. So it's not the demographic that needs the most attention. But a white homeless person has power over a Black homeless person. A white homeless person is more likely to receive outreach services than a Black homeless person. A white homeless person is more likely to be given leniency by the police than a Black homeless person. A white homeless person is safer to panhandle than a Black homeless person. A white homeless person is more likely to be offered a plea deal than a Black homeless person. These are examples of privilege, but a white homeless person who decides to be in community with Black homeless people without acknowledging these privileges is also exerting power. Because in that situation, the Black homeless person is going to recognize the white privileges that the white person has, and the white person is not. But the reality is, when you exist in community or in a space with somebody who has less systemic privilege than you do, your power is in doing everything possible to mitigate the impact of your excess privilege. Choosing not to mitigate the impact of your excess privilege in some way is a form of wielding power. We have the power to put other people in harm's way, at risk, in danger, even if we aren't experiencing power in the way that you're talking about it. I don't want to be in community with people who don't believe that white privilege isn't real, and I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to hear from them. My videos about white privilege have made it onto the side of TikTok where people don't think white privilege exists. You've noticed that I've blocked several of the people that have come from your community. I don't have tolerance for that kind of behavior and ideology. I also don't have tolerance for people who are rude, people who show up just to tell me that I'm wrong, or that I'm stupid, or that I'm delusional, or that I'm sick in the head, or that I need mental health help. Or people who make fun of me because I'm blind in one eye and my eyes face two different directions. Those are the comments of the people that I have blocked. So y'all can keep sending your best over here to pick on me and make fun of me, and I'll just keep blocking, which is my right to do. Because this is my page, and I don't have to engage with anybody that I don't want to talk to. It doesn't have anything to do with them disagreeing with me. If you look through my posts, there's about 500 comments yesterday of people disagreeing with me who have not been blocked. The disagreement is not the problem. The dehumanization and disrespect is. Also the racism. I don't put up with that.
I seriously love this. The way at which this, some of these pan-color people actually want to be oppressed so much is so alarming. Like most of them do not and don't want to hear the term oppression or white privilege, or okay, you are being treated well compared to these other people. They just don't want to hear that. Meanwhile, deep inside of them, they know about what is going on. They know the way at which the society is being run. They know vividly well that the society favor them. Even in the midst of the poorest of the poor pan-colored person, this person does still have privilege. This video actually remind me of some stitches and videos I actually see on the course of looking for what to actually put here, where some pan-colored people often come out to talk about how to measure their being poor and not being privileged. Like they went ahead to talk about if they so have privilege, like the way at which POC people, especially black people, do talk about how they have privilege. Why is it that they are so poor? Why is it that they cannot actually have everything they want in life? Why is it that they can't even wake up in the morning and demand for whatsoever they want in life, and it's at their back and call? They even went ahead to actually equate, okay, I also work the same way every other person work. I get to wake up in the morning, I get to dress up, I get to go to work, I get to pay my bills just the same way every other race does that. But without these people, I don't know, maybe they're trying to form that they are ignorant, or maybe they are ignorant not to understand the term privilege. Privilege does not mean that you have to sleep or lay down on your bed and demand for coffee to be served to you and it will automatically get to you. Or privilege does not mean that you don't need to pay your bills, or you don't need to pay your rent, or you don't need to work in order to earn ends meet. This is not what we are talking about. We are talking about how the society has been built to actually favor a particular race of people. Even in the poorest of poor, these some people still have some kind of privilege compared to the other. Like this is what we are talking about. And thank God I was just going through my For You page, and I came across this lady actually spitting the facts. Like I like the way at which stuff like this, education like this, is coming from people like her, or it's coming from pan-colored people, because it makes me to have a sense of relief that okay, some of these people understand what we are talking about. Some of these people actually want to learn, they actually want to get educated. And if it to take people like this, people like her, to get educated, and in order for them to educate the other people that failed to understand, even if they know vividly well what is happening. Like I can actually make more emphasis on the story she talked about. She, as a pan-colored person who happens to be a minority in a neighborhood, is still be looked upon as someone that you can't do anything with, you can't work with, like you can't disrespect, even if she's a minority in a neighborhood that is dominated by other race of people. But as a pan-colored person, you can still not do share with her. She still have more privilege than you as a majority living in a said neighborhood. So this is what we're talking about. Even in the homeless shelter or whatsoever, in the homeless home and all of that, as a pan-colored person, you still have privilege there. Even as a poor pan-colored person, you still have more privilege compared to a poor other race or pan-colored POC black people. This is what we're talking about. So somebody also left a comment in her section talking about her police brutality.
affect both, POC people, black people, and pan-colored people. She also made an emphasis of not, trying to she even used her own brother who she lost. Nobody is saying that the police brutality, does not really affect other people, but the rate at which it affects especially black people is alarming. Not even, quite long ago, I posted a video about a lady. This lady was just in a house, a pan-colored, a black woman in her house, and she felt that, okay, there is something happening there. Maybe how she's in trouble, and she decided to call the cop to come help, but only for the cop to get there and put her. This is what we're talking about. So if she can't even call the cop for safety, who else does she think she's gonna call? You are meant to call a cop to come protect you, but she, in her own case, she called someone that ended up being the enemy. This is what we're talking about. And you think if that call was made by any other, maybe pan-colored, and this pan-colored cop would just come and just spewed it just like that, or because he felt that you were carrying hot pot of water? This is what we're talking about. When I saw this video, I was like, this lady actually broke it into pieces, the way at which these delusional people will actually understand what we meant when we talk about, privilege, and all of that. But a lot of them know this, but just that they want to pretend and perform as if they don't know what is going on, but deep inside of them don't know what is going on. You can just check that video I posted 2 days ago. This lady was just at home and she felt there was trouble. She decided to call the cop, and only for the cop to come and, Anyway, lovelies, why not just leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video. And do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying, harassment, or whatsoever. We're just here for education and informative purposes. So please subscribe to this channel, turn on notification, and I will see you lovelies.
What after this is there. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Why not just leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video. And do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying, harassment, or whatsoever. We're just here for educational purposes. So please share this video, subscribe to this channel if you're yet to do that. And I will see you lovelies when I upload the next one.